Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth iteration of the MagicINFO Partner Summit. We are really excited for you to join in and learn about our latest iteration of MagicINFO9. Uh, so, what basically is MagicINFO? So, MagicINFO is a management system that is an industry-leading platform that offers seamless remote hardware as well as software management, enabling content delivery of any type from any location at any time. And when we say content delivery, we mean content could be anything from your basic assets like images, videos, to complex assets that include all of these images, videos, text, widgets, and also it is capable of delivering applications that our partner ecosystem develops. So MagicINFO, in essence, is a delivery platform of content of any type. So when we talk about MagicINFO basically comprises of three core components. You have the MagicINFO authoring tool that comes in three different flavors. You have the web author, that's part of the MagicINFO software. You have a premium author, that's a separate Windows installer that provides you some additional features over the web author. And then you also have a video wall author, that's a Windows installer that's specific to video wall authoring. So author is basically to create the content that you have. The second and core component of MagicINFO is the MagicINFO server. And that's the brains, and it provides you the ability to manage content, manage devices, manage users, and create playlists and create schedules. It is broken down into smaller components that could be individually installed, like the Edge server, a remote control server, remote content download server, and an auth server. The third component of MagicINFO is the MagicINFO player that resides on the client side or the endpoint device side. And in most of our cases, almost all of our displays have the system on chip built in. So the player is part of the display. You don't need a separate player. And we usually reference that as the S player or W player. S player is basically means an SoC based player. W player is an SoC player, but is driven by the web components like CSS, JavaScript, HTML. In addition, we also have something called as an I player. That's a version of MagicINFO that could be MagicINFO player that could be installed on a Windows PC or a Nook and could be placed behind any display. These are the three core components of MagicINFO. In addition, we also have certain add-on services like the MagicINFO data link service. So a lot of times you have a requirement to pull in dynamic data items from different locations. Data link is precisely meant to do that. So if you have data residing on a database or XML file, so data link can pull that data and then provide dynamic content to MagicINFO templates that you see on the screen. We also have something called as MagicINFO Insights. MagicINFO Insights is basically a tool that provides you graphical representation of the proof of play data that MagicINFO renders through our screens. So every time you play a content, which content was played on which screen for how long, all that data is captured by MagicINFO. It is stored on MagicINFO as in a specific database format. And what Insight does is it pulls that information out and shows it in a user interface form that makes most sense to someone managing the MagicINFO system. So why do we need MagicINFO? MagicINFO is basically a complete management system. where users can manage both your content as well as device utilizing a single platform. MagicINFO is also a completely integrated solution for monitoring and controlling hardware issues remotely. So that you don't have to actually send out a person to get things fixed. Everything is shown on your screen. MagicINFO provides horizontal device compatibility with uh, all our Samsung displays, whether they be standalone displays, video wall displays, interactive displays. Philip briefly mentioned about the flip display. LEDs, we have a large lineup of both indoor and outdoor LEDs that could be controlled from MagicINFO, and as well as outdoor displays. This year, we are also adding a new display type that we are going to discuss later, kiosks. So we also would have ability to remotely manage kiosks. Vertical solution integration. This is targeted towards our partner ecosystem, such as yourselves, where everything that you see on the MagicINFO user interface can now be driven through REST-based APIs. Basically, even our own user interface uses those APIs to extract data from the MagicINFO core system. So those APIs are open. We provide it to our partners to build their solutions on top of that. You can augment MagicINFO as part of your solution, or you can white label MagicINFO and sell it as your own offering. On the display side, whenever you turn on the display for the first time, you see the MagicINFO logo come up. You have the option to customize that. You can change that to something that represents your brand. And that's an option that we provide to our partners. Device group and preset, again, is targeted towards our integrator partners who actually go out and install these displays. So in order to make your job easier, we do provide the option of creating device groups. And within device groups, you can assign certain preset values that whenever this certain display in a certain location is installed, these are the parameters it would require. So once someone is installing it, all they have to do in there is provide a group code, and then it'll automatically get those settings from this. MagicINFO has a very intuitive user interface, so it doesn't require special training in order to learn how to use MagicINFO. I would say if you spend like a couple hours, you would be able to get the gist of how it works. It's drag and drop in most cases, and it's very well organized so that looks more like a step-by-step process of how do you work with content, how do you create playlists, how do you schedule it onto devices, and how do you remotely manage it. So it's very easy to learn. Lower total cost of ownership. So since most of our displays have the system on chip built in, there is no need for an additional media player. So that eliminates a lot of costs. That eliminates cost of the media player itself, cost of cables, wires, power, and also most of our displays have Wi-Fi capabilities. So you don't have to have a LAN infrastructure built in order to display, in order to install our displays. This is a representational comparison that we have provided on total cost of ownership over a 5-year period. So server install is pretty much free. We provide you the software. You can install it at your leisure. Player software, again, is built into the price of the display. So display comes with the player. Activation, the only activation you require is on the server side, where you would activate it against a given license. And maintenance, again, maintenance, since the player is within the display, so there's no separate maintenance. It's covered under the display. MagicINFO is also enterprise ready. It does provide you features like support for LDAP and single sign-on. For single sign-on, we use the SAML protocol, so it can seamlessly pull your corporate credentials into MagicINFO so that you don't have to create users specifically just for MagicINFO. As soon as you log into your Windows machine, it's going to pull that information into Magic. Then into MagicINFO, you can go in there and you can select a user and assign them certain roles, depending on what kind of user they are, whether they are a power user, whether they just there for creating content, whether they're an IT administrator. You have an option to create custom roles for them. And you also, once you install this in your enterprise space and you don't have any specific content you want to push to that display, you can always assign default content. So whenever a new display is installed, by default, it plays content that you see. Now, moving on into our first core component, the MagicINFO author. So the MagicINFO author empowers the user to create compelling content with a variety of different templates, clip arts, visual effects, and helps drive more customer engagement. So MagicINFO author, and specifically the web author, is built into the MagicINFO software. So once you log into MagicINFO, you have an option of launching the web author tool. And as soon as you launch it, it is going to ask you questions like, hey, which display type are you targeting? What kind of resolution are you looking at? And what would your file name look like? And once you have that information, it's going to present you with the different templates, pre-existing templates that it has. You can select what kind of layout you're looking for. Once you have that, you can bring in a bunch of assets, whether it's text, images, videos. You have the capability to upload your own fonts if you want. Uh, and then you can add visual effects to the content that you just added, like graffiti or snow falling. All those kinds of visual effects are built in as into the web author. And it also provides you widget integration. We have a lot of widgets that are already embedded into MagicINFO, like the weather widget, RSS feeds, time, clock, um, and one of the most important widgets that we offer is a web element that basically gives you the ability to bring a website onto a portion of it. Intuitive features for enhanced user experience. Again, I mentioned that it does support user fonts. So you have the ability to upload custom fonts that you have for your organization into MagicINFO. Uh, we have a pretty cool feature called variable tags. And for this, we can take an example of, let's say, USR store where you're installing, excuse me, you're installing displays all around different QSR restaurants in different locations. And these locations are basically, let's say, showing a web page that's catered to that particular location. What you can do is for the server to identify which uh, location is querying that data, you can tag the display with a variable tag. So whenever the display makes a URL call to the server, it can add that variable tag to the end of it. So now the server knows, okay, which display is contacting me, and based on that, will serve the web page, the appropriate web page for that particular display. So this is a pretty powerful feature that we have. We also have the option of locking content. So if you have a content admin who's basically creating templates on MagicINFO, they have an option of locking certain parts of the content. So for example, if you want to add a logo and you want all your content to have that logo in there, the master content admin can go in there, add that logo and lock that. So every template that's created would by default have that logo in there. Moving on to our core component, the MagicINFO server. So MagicINFO server basically allows users to create playlists from various types of content and enables easy scheduling with an intuitive user interface. Users can also distribute content across displays while monitoring all devices and content, receiving notifications of any errors in real time. So the flow goes this way. You upload content either directly from your hard drive into MagicINFO or through the web authoring tool. You schedule that content out, the content gets published onto the display, and once it's on the display, you start monitoring and controlling these displays. Seamless scheduling. So we briefly spoke about the ability of in MagicINFO to now schedule apps. So we do work with our Tizen partner ecosystem, and we do work with large organizations like Four Winds and Navori, and we do have the ability to now push out their apps from within MagicINFO. So you can push out their apps, they can render the content, and we can use remote management to basically control the displays. You have an option of organizing devices into groups or subgroups, uh, and uh, and also if you're managing multiple organization, you can create multiple orgs. Within orgs, you can have groups and subgroups of devices. You can assign them specific tags that could be utilized whenever a content is being played back. So for example, if you tagged a playlist or tagged a display to show certain kind of content, like this display would cater to a certain demographics. So in a playlist, whenever in a tagged playlist, you have content for certain demographics, it's going to show on the display. So we also provide you the option of creating nested playlists. So for example, you have a regular playlist, you can add a sub playlist to that. And this could be time-based or promotion-based. So whenever you're playing back that playlist, whenever that promotion is on, it's going to show you the nested portion of the playlist. It's going to display on the screen. And whenever it's not relevant anymore, it would remove it. Conditional scheduling is a tool that we added starting MagicINFO 8. It's a very strong feature that was added. And with this, it gives you the option of earlier, if you had to create schedules for certain display types or certain screen resolutions or certain orientations, you had to create separate schedules for them. But now with a conditional schedule, you have an option of adding logic to your schedule, and based on internal data items like the device name, screen size, resolution, network, the display would know what content it has to play. You create one schedule, you add logic to it, you send it out to all displays, and then the displays would determine what content it has to play. Conditional schedule also allows you to accept external triggers coming in from our add-on module data link. Dynamic content distribution. So once you are creating the schedule, you have an option of adding up to 100 different channels. So channel 1 could play one content, channel 2 could play another content, and so on and so forth. So you have an option of doing that. We have used channels a lot for use cases like IPTV streaming, or cases where you require backup content. So for example, you're playing primary content and something goes wrong with it, you can simply go up to the display and do a channel up, and then it starts playing. So multi-channel is pretty good feature of that. Multi-frame management. So in WebAuthor, we saw you have an option of selecting layout and placing items in different areas. Now, in the WebAuthor, when you do that, it creates a file called an LFD file. That's a proprietary file that is a combination of multiple assets. But you also have an option of segmenting our display into portions at the scheduling level, where you can add a multi-frame format. And in the multi-frame format, one of the items could be an LFD file. So this is useful in an environment where you have a large screen and there is a fixed portion that would consume an LFD file, but the other portions could be dynamic, and you could use frames for that. Backup play. MagicINFO does provide you an option to assign backup play. So if you consider an example of an indoor menu board in a QSR restaurant, you have 3 screens up there. 2 of them are showing you the menu, and 1 is showing promotional content. Now, what you can do is you can assign the one showing the promotional content as a backup display, and the primary display could be the one showcasing the menu board. So in the event something happens to the one showing the menu board, the backup display automatically takes forward and starts showing the content, the menu content, instead of the promotional content. Full network monitoring. You have an option. MagicINFO does provide you an option into looking into errors and warnings on the display. It provides you more than 130 hardware and software errors, and all those notifications you can view on your MagicINFO dashboard. It provides you an option of adding or connecting it via SMTP to an email server that can send you notifications via email. It also provides you if you want to remotely log in into a display and manage it and provide it user input through keyboard and mouse. That option is also available in MagicINFO. Comprehensive security protection. From MagicINFO, you have the ability to manage various ports on our displays, like USB ports, the network port. With MagicINFO9, now we have also added the ability to control HDMI imports, so you have the capability to lock those ports remotely. So what's new in MagicINFO9? So the first great news is MagicINFO9 is now ISO 27701 certified. That's Personal Information Management System certification that MagicINFO received this year. And it covers both data security as well as your privacy concerns. So now if you're a customer, someone asks you, hey, is MagicINFO in compliance with European GDPR standards or California CCPA privacy standards or HIPAA standards? You can confidently say, yes, it is. So this is something huge that we received this year. We have a refreshed dashboard. On earlier iterations of MagicINFO, we did have a dashboard which primarily focused on external servers and user information. But this year, we have made device management our primary focus. So the device status and the error and warning notification is at the forefront on the dashboard now. So from an admin's point of view, the primary concern is whether the displays are up and running and if they're showing the right content. So now they have access to that right from their dashboard. We have made some minor optimizations to our firmware upgrade process. Earlier from MagicINFO, whenever you used to push out a firmware, it used to get pushed out to the display, and then the display used to check whether the firmware is right for that display or not. But now this is done at the MagicINFO level, so only the right firmware is put to the display. That saves you on network bandwidth. This is one of the most exciting features that was added this year. We all know that MagicINFO did provide you remote capability where you could VNC into the display and look at what the display is playing in real time. You had to do this one display at a time. Now with MagicINFO9, you can select up to 12 displays and VNC into them at once. And the cool thing about this is you can look at what all the 12 displays are playing and also issue remote control commands to all 12 of them at the same time. So this is one of the biggest features that was added in Magic. This year, we are also adding a new display type. We call it the Samsung kiosks. And this would primarily work with our partner ecosystem, specifically our partners, our SSSP, or app partners, or ISV partners. And hopefully we should start getting this out later this year. With MagicINFO9, you would now have the capability of remotely managing these kiosks and also the apps that are running on these kiosks. You would be able to uninstall, install apps remotely. You would be able to uh, uh, see all the error warnings. These kiosks would have peripheral devices like printers, barcode scanners, connection to your payment terminals. All that could now be monitored from within MagicINFO. Private certificates. This was one of the VOCs we received a few years ago, where specifically for enterprise networks, we were asked to add the capability of adding private certificates in an 802.1x environment. We did do that last year. However, in order to upload private certificates, you had to go out to individual displays and upload it. We have now added a feature in MagicINFO to actually remotely push out these remote certificates from MagicINFO. So when you're, let's say, setting up the display for the first time, you can add them to a demilitarized zone and push out these certificates. And once they're pushed out, they can automatically get added to the enterprise network. In case you want to update the certificates, you can now push it out. New endpoint device management features. We discussed this in addition to the network and USB and Bluetooth locks. We have also added locks for input source from HDMI. So now remotely you can manage the HDMI source that no one can just walk up to it, plug in their HDMI and start viewing stuff off of that. You can lock all those ports from MagicINFO. Also, one of the VOCs that we got from our customers was if we install our displays in a meeting room environment or in a meeting room, they didn't want an administrator the ability to view what's going on in the meeting. So we did add a feature to actually lock the screen monitoring. So now if the screen monitoring is locked for a particular display, you don't have the ability to see what's going on in that particular meeting. Enhanced license management. This is another cool feature that was added this year. And this is specifically for our partners that operate MagicINFO for multiple organizations. Earlier, licenses, whenever you bought licenses, it had to be assigned to individual organizations. But now with MagicINFO9, you can buy a large chunk of or a large pool of MagicINFO licenses, and within MagicINFO, you now have the ability to assign these licenses to different organizations. So you can manage how you're going to use the license pool that you have. Programmatic advertising. This is a new feature that we are planning to add towards the end of this year. And once this is added, MagicINFO would have the capability to pull programmatic advertising from all the major supply side platforms out there. So this would help our customers, our partners to create revenue if they place ad slots in the playlist of content. So this is something that's coming soon. MagicINFO Player, as we all know, most of our displays employ the system on chip. It's a PC-less solution. So it's a comprehensive platform, including built-in media player, Wi-Fi module, and a powerful processor. And MagicINFO S Player is embedded in smart signage and doesn't require any additional devices to play digital media or communication with. Powerful playback. It is capable of playing up to 8K content, provides cost saving, and it's easy to maintain. Again, performance comparable. It does have a performance that's comparable to external media players. It does provide up to 8K playback, multi-video playback. You have an option to play up to 3 full HD and 1 UHD content. Seamless transition when it moves from one content type to another content type. You don't see any black gap. Decentralized content delivery. This was a feature that was added last year, and this applies to instances where you have your MagicINFO server hosted on the cloud. So earlier, whenever you used to push out content or firmware, it used to be pushed out to each individual displays. Now you have an option to add uh, or make a display a proxy of sorts. So whenever you push out something new, it gets pushed out to the display. And from that display over the internal network, it gets pushed out to the other displays. So that it saves you on network bandwidth. MagicINFO data link. So this is our add-on module to MagicINFO, and its primary role is to bring in dynamic content from different sources into MagicINFO. So, for example, if you have if you consider a QSR scenario and you have a digital menu board showing your menu contents and you want the ability to change it, you can tie in the source of this pricing into data link, and whenever you make changes to that source, it's going to be pulled into data link server, and from data link is going to get pushed out to our displays via MagicINFO server. All the update that happens is all in real time, and data link also supports various modules, whether it's database connectivity to MySQL databases, Oracle databases, or you want to pull data from Excel files or CSV files or XML files. It also provides you an ability to pull data from REST-based APIs. Yeah, this doesn't require any additional middleware. However, there are certain cases we do work with customers and partners to figure out their unique use cases and can bring in our partners to develop certain middleware portals. Data view, if you're pulling content from multiple sources or multiple tables and you want a way to merge that table so that you can pull certain content from each table, you have something called as a data view in MagicINFO Data Link, where you can create a SQL query to gather content from one source, check it against the other source, and then create a table of your own. So we provide that flexibility within MagicINFO. operational efficiency. It would only update the display if there is new content to be pushed out. It also caches data on the display for up to 24 hours. So whenever data has been pushed out to our displays, it's resident there. So if for some reason the connection between the display and data link were to break due to a network issue or something, the data would persist on our displays. Push API, you have two options where a data link can connect to the data source that you provide. It could either pull information, or it could the data source could push information into data link. Multi-threaded communication. If we have multiple sources we are pulling from, it's you're going to have a separate thread managing each connection, so that's less processing power on the data link side. Let's talk about MagicINFO Insights. As we discussed, Insight is an add-on module that's primarily responsible for analyzing the proof of play data that MagicINFO has generated. Whenever you push out data to our screens, the type of content, when it was pushed out, how long it played, all those parameters are saved within MagicINFO. And Insights basically is a user UI tool that pulls all that information from that database and shows you in a way that actually makes sense. You also have the option of generating reports from the data that you pull out from the database. And it provides you enhanced user interface where you can analyze data, and based on that you can take certain actions. Like for example, if there's a certain screen that you need to move around based on the movement of people, you can do that. You also have the ability to pull in sales data into Insights. So now you can augment the proof of play data with the sales data to figure out information like, okay, if you ran this particular promotional content on the screen, did it generate more revenue for that? If it didn't, then you can move things around to see what works best. And that's the end of MagicINFO introduction.